So, from yesterday, if we would just talk about a general statement that what explains how organisms change over time, that would be evolution. So, when organisms change, it's perhaps due to an adaptation. In other words, that's what allows them to be more successful than the previous generation. And yes.
Are we still evolving? When you talk about evolving, is it like does it go from like a fish that temporarily goes in the water to not having fins to just having fins, or is it like it grows like these little limbs and then it'll eventually like us going from in stages going into the fins?
No.
Which one would it be? Is it just like they just grow fins?
It's some animals that choose to move on to land would lose their fins, and has to be slowly over time. And in that case, that is not 30,000 to 300,000 years. You're talking about probably close to 500 million years. Okay?
So, what do you think is next for humans? Like, what are we going to involve from that? Like, what are we going to change?
A robot or something?
Like, are we just going to lose our ears or something next?
Well, we don't talk. We maybe don't. How many of you know how to address a letter?
What do you mean?
Depends on the day, actually.
You need to send a type of, well, you could say a girl's state application, a boy's state application. I don't know what that would be for, up to South Dakota State or down to University of South Dakota. You have to address that to them. How do you do that?
The centers there are the top left zeros, and the top right has the postage.
Top right's postage. I didn't hear what was before that.
The
Middle's where it's going. Over is 2.
and then the top left is you.
Yeah, your return address. That's right. So one of the things that maybe will happen in, I don't know how much time we have left on this earth, because the sun is eventually just keeps growing and growing, and eventually it will consume the earth. Of course, that's just a theory that we are, I don't know, 500 million years down the road. I really don't know. Yes?
Since the sun is like growing, obviously it's gravitationally will be in that case. So would it suck us up like that, or would it push us?
I think it would do both. It's going to pull the Earth out of its orbit, but by that time, I don't think humans will be on. The Earth will have been inhabitable by the time that takes place. Okay? Okay, so is there any individual here who plays more than one musical instrument?
I do.
Technically.
Yeah.
Okay.
I technically
do.
So when you do that, are you more comfortable with one type of instrument as opposed to another? Okay. So that's where you would feel most successful with that instrument, right? Okay. I would perhaps agree. It's yes. So it's not necessarily just with that of music. We could say the same thing for that of basketball when it comes to three-point shooting. Some people, they want the ball on the wing. Some people want it in the corner. Some people, very rarely, I guess, I thought I was maybe a better shooter at the top of the key, but people tend to say, I don't want to shoot at the top of the key. I'd rather be in the corner. Okay? So why would someone choose to be in the corner as opposed to the top of the wing? They're more comfortable with that. That's where they're more successful. Well, in this process, we could say pretty much the same thing. Now, do all animals that are born, that's another aspect that I think that sets humans apart from animals. So now we're talking about animals. Do all survive to reproduce? Not by a long shot. Okay? And I think the best way to look at that is when you talk about a clutch size. That means that's how many offspring an organism has. So the best example I think that we can give is that of alligators and crocodiles. Okay? Because I think it's something you can visualize in your head. So, in your estimation, what do you think is a clutch size for, what do I want to say, a breeding round for because throughout their life, alligators may reproduce more than once. So, on the average time, how many alligators do you think are born? A little more than that.
A million.
I would say between 20 and maybe 40, okay? And what's odd about that is, okay, typically throughout the rest of the animal kingdom, it's the XY chromosome that determines whether it is a male or a female. That is not the case with that of alligators. It's the temperature at which they are incubated. Okay? It's a very narrow range. If it's 34 to 34.5 degrees Celsius, it is a male. Anywhere from 0 up to 33.5, somewhere in that range, it's a female. If it's above 34.5 or 35 degrees, it's a female. It's that very limited temperature range that determines. That's really rather strange. I can't hear what you're saying when I'm talking.
So there's a higher chance for alligators to be food.
I would tend to believe so. But so out of that clutch size that we said was anywhere between 20 and 30, if all of those survived to reproduce, you'd have alligators everywhere. But that is not the case. So what in your mind might be a contributing factor to the demise or the decrease in those animals that they actually crack their shell, and then why do some not survive?
Lack of food.
Okay, there could not be enough food. There could be a bad spring, for instance. There could be cannibalism. There could be disease. There could be predation. Any one of those can certainly diminish the number of alligators. And that's certainly very evident for pheasant hunters. If it's a bad spring, the nesting season, it's catastrophic for the pheasant population. It just is. But it will rebound from time to time. So anyway, moving forward then, that's approximately a quick summation of where we had left off with yesterday. So then, once you have a balance between birth and death rates, that seems to be the last thing I think that we talked about, okay, is when you don't have overpopulation, okay? So once these two balance each other out, you don't have a problem with this, okay? So, moving forward then, okay? One of the aspects that we're going to move on in the zoology class, just off of the top of your head, I would expect you could name 3. No. 3 species of sharks.
Tiger.
Tiger,
Mano.
hammerhead,
Mano.
Great white.
Mano.
and great. What?
Mano.
Mano.
They're little guys.
Nurse.
Makeup.
Okay. So, yes, so you had met that threshold. You gave probably the most common ones. Great whites, hammerheads, and tiger sharks. Yes, there are makos. There's reef sharks. There are lemon sharks. There's whale sharks. Lots of them. So why is it that we see that many different types of sharks? Well, what are we talking about here?
The megalodon.
Okay? So individuals may have or may inherit, you could say, have different traits, because one of the things that happens is a mako shark is not found in coastal waters. They're more so out to sea, okay? When you're looking at maybe, of course, reef sharks, that gives you a pretty good idea of where you're going to find them. So why is it that you would have some sharks up next to the reef, like great whites and reef sharks? Well, that's where the food is, okay? So there's different reasons to cause these genetic variations. So anytime that happens, okay, does that mean that a mako shark, which is really, really fast, can it survive next to the reef? Yeah, it probably can. But it just probably would not be very successful if there are bigger sharks around there, like that of white or great white sharks. So you would not want to have that type of overpopulation there. So the genetic variation that takes place allows these animals to be more successful in their own environment, whether it's out to sea or whether it is close to the reef. Okay? So that's just one example. Others we could talk about is, you could say, longer fur, longer or shorter legs. One of the things I wanted to possibly show you was dealing with pygmy animals. I found the disc I was looking for, but I think I marked that as it does not work anymore, so I'd have to try to find the VHS tape, because does anyone think they know what we mean by a pygmy? Smaller animals, okay? So not all animals are going to grow in size to be successful. Some will actually become smaller, okay? So it's whatever it is, that genetic variation, that will increase their chance of survival. It's not necessarily getting bigger, it's actually getting smaller. And in this video, they talk about that of reindeer, actually, okay? Because what happens is some of these reindeer actually migrated to a different island, okay? For some reason, elephants constantly swim in the ocean. You might not think that's possible, but yes, elephants swim, reindeer swim. So typically what happens then is some of these reindeer that would, per se, migrate to an island where if there's lots of deep snow, okay, which one of those is going to be an advantage if there's deep snow? Okay, how about just one person?
More clearance.
Yeah, so their belly's not scraping across the ground, right?
Yeah.
Okay? Now, yes, I would agree that that's true, but why would an animal need to have these taller legs? Yes, we said so their belly doesn't scrape across the ground. There's got to be a reason for that.
Preserve energy.
Yeah, conserve energy.
They don't want to.
For what reason? Longer strides, yes, but for what reason? Just to run for the, yeah, it's going to make them faster, just for the heck of it.
To run away from prey.
Probably not so much food,
To run away.
to run away. That's right. So even though it might be an advantage to have longer legs, some of these animals can have shorter legs because there's no predation on them. Because remember, we said they migrated to an island where there was no natural predators for them. So these genetic variations cause animals to become bigger. Sometimes they actually can become smaller. Okay? So if a trait is successful, that is going to be passed on to the next generation. And since your spider ring, I mean, one of the things what comes to mind when you think of what type of spider comes to mind when you see them?
A wolf spider. A wolf spider.
Okay, good answers, but who is the largest of the class of spiders? Tarantulas. Okay, so I was looking for this here because for anyone who's ever seen the movie Home Alone, I think the best part in that movie is when the character Kevin reaches for the tarantula, picks him up by the waistband, just like this, and then places that on the face of the villain. Okay? Then, of course, what does the villain do? He's got a crowbar, and he's going to hit the chest of where that spider landed. But there's not a chance he's going to hit that spider. Not because it's bad aim, but how does the spider know how to get out of the way?
Because it's not stupid.
Say that again.
I mean,
No. No. Because think, when you see a tarantula, besides the size, what other physical characteristics? Say that again. They're hairy. All those hairs on that animal pick up all these air currents. So as that crowbar is coming down, it's going to feel the air currents coming long before it even has a chance to strike where it is he's looking for. Now, reason that's significant is at one time, probably all certain species of spiders were perhaps bald. But then what had happened is some of them started to grow hair. That got to be a type of advantage for those animals, so they passed that trait onto their offspring. I just thought of that when I looked at your ring there. And we talked about that this morning in zoology. I mean, good story, right?
once upon a time.
Okay. Okay. I want to do this one. And then I think we'll stop there for today, because when you hear the term weasel, okay, that's a very vague term. Can you give an example of a weasel? Once you give one, you're going to think of another one right away. I heard ferret, that's right. I heard otter, that's right.
A mink.
Minks.